Welcome to Q&A Elk Shape. This is number 4. This is my version of a podcast. This is where you can gain some knowledge, or at least get my take and hopefully make you more successful. That's really all I'm trying to do here. I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy with some experience, and I'll tell you what works for me and give you my opinion, but there's several other more knowledgeable elk hunters out there. I'm gonna talk today about one of my sponsors, Onyx Maps out of Missoula, Montana. If you've never heard of them, I would strongly encourage you, if you are a public land hunter, to look them up. They make awesome technology mapping software for your smartphone, for your GPS, so you can know that you are on the correct land, and you can get really nerdy with this stuff, especially on a smartphone. You can cache maps and make sure that you are hunting BLM, DNR, National Forest. It gives you the names of landowners, so you can knock on their door and use their last name, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I would like to hunt your property, things like that. It gives you 100% confidence that you are legal, which is huge, and also help you discover areas you never knew were public land. I don't know how you could hunt without it, really. It's awesome. I would check it out. I think they have some free trial. I would try that, download it to your smartphone, and go from there. Today, we're gonna answer 2 questions. We're gonna go as fast as we can. My inbox is swole, so I'm gonna be behind for a while, but I've asked for your emails and I'm gonna continue to ask for them. Send your questions that I might try to be able to answer, elkshape@gmail.com. I'll get to those. If I answer your question, I'm gonna make it worth your while. I'll send you some swag, an elk shape shirt or hat or sticker. And without further ado, we're gonna talk about elk butchering without a dead elk here. So this is gonna be a little bit challenging. Kyle asked me, how do I butcher my elk meat / get the elk meat out when it is hot? Give me the details. Kyle, here goes. First thing you gotta ask yourself, now that you have this dead elk, is are you gonna cape this elk or are you not gonna cape it? If you are caping it, you're gonna make things harder on yourself. I don't assume most people know how to cape an animal all the way out where it's just their hide. They peel it off, work the face and get all of it off. Don't do that. Let your taxidermist do that. You'll probably screw that up unless you're experienced. But if you are gonna cape it, you're gonna cut way behind the shoulder, like 6 to 8 inches, and you're gonna cut down here, and you're gonna work that off, and it's gonna make life a lot more challenging. But I'm gonna assume you're not caping. I'm gonna talk about that. I hardly ever cape any of my elk out, and I've only mounted 1 bull, and my dad's only mounted 1 bull, and between the 2 of us we got probably 30 bulls dead at our cabin where we keep our trophies. But I usually do euros or skull caps, and that's just me. But I'll talk about how to basically break down an elk when it's hot. I don't know if global warming is a real thing, but it sure seems like it's been getting hotter and hotter each fall. More and more wildfires. Getting meat out has been more and more of a challenge. I'm waiting for the day where I can have an elk killed with lots of daylight left, and it's not too hot, where I can throw a camera on a tripod and take you through that 90-minute process of breaking an elk down. It is 90 minutes when you have help. Last few elk I've killed has been by myself, so it's taking longer. First thing I do is I run a backpack system where I can make sure that my very first loadout is with meat. I use the Exo Mountain Gear pack. I've talked about that, where you can pull the bag away from the frame and put your quarters or your deboned meat in there, and you're hauling elk out on your first trip out. That's critical. Find a backpack system that works best for you, where you're not wasting energy and having to go back and get a pack frame. That's too old school, and I think you're wasting energy, and that's a precious commodity in the backcountry. Next thing is get a sharp knife. I use a Havalon. I use 2 to 3 blades per elk, and it's awesome. Make sure that you be very careful with those. They're extremely sharp. I usually cut myself a couple of times, but you don't want to have to go to the emergency room and get stitches. And those things are really awesome, and they're lightweight, and that's the only knife I carry. Quality game bags is important. I use tag bags. They're not as big. You can't put a quarter in them. I always debone. You don't have to debone. Caribou game bags are good as well. They're both synthetic. They dry out fast. They get the heat out fast. That's critical. So spend some dough on good game bags. When you're doing an elk, you're probably going to want to go gutless. I'll talk about that method, and I'm also going to post 2 videos from other people that have made great videos that on YouTube that you can watch. One's from Montana Wild called The Pack Out, and another one's from Randy Newberg on how he breaks the elk down. But it really depends on, are you going to cape it or you're not going to cape it? And then another important decision is topography and how is your elk laying. A lot of bulls will die up against a snag. That's going to be tough. They'll die in brush, or they'll get tangled up, and so getting an elk to a spot where you can work on it is great. Also, you might want to start packing Tyvek or a lightweight tarp that you can spread out and put your meat on. That's going to be huge for keeping the brush and the dirt out of your meat. When you're doing gutless, you run along the spine from as back far as you can all the way up to the base of the neck. and you work that side that you can. And so I'll run a nice long cut, really long, just zip right up or down. And then I usually go to the front shoulder, work the hide back, peel down to the elbow. I'll cut the elbow off. You don't need a saw, just cut through the tendons and snap. And then you can run a line up, get the hide off. Shoulders come off, as most of you know if you've never done an elk, shoulders come off without any cutting. You don't have to cut through bone, just work that shoulder off through the soft tissue and it's off. Your shoulder would do the same thing. I could take your shoulder off with just a knife without cutting through bone. So shoulders are held together through soft tissue called the shoulder capsule. Cut that off and then set that on your tie back or tarp, and then you're gonna go ahead and work your way to the hindquarter. That's gonna be a little bit tricky by yourself. Keep the leg completely attached, get all the hide off, work that until you get to the hip bone, make your cut, and you will, it'll be a little more challenging. The hindquarter's a little more challenging, especially if you don't know where to cut, but if you use leverage and force, you'll hear some snapping and you'll be able to cut those ligaments at the hip bone off. It's called acetabulum, and you'll just work that off, and then you have to cut a little bit of meat along the hip bone, but you'll be able to get that off. And then you want to do your back strap. You're going to run along the spine and then work along the ribs, and that should peel right out, no problem. And then you're going to do the tenderloin. Now, if you kept the guts in, you're going to have to move the guts, push them down, go to the back of the last rib, and work that out. And that's going to come out pretty easy because it is tender meat. I like to take the guts out at that point, especially when it's hot. And so what I'll do is I will take all the rib meat, and then I'll probably break one of the middle ribs. Just break it, and now you have a nice big area where you can reach in and work that lining all the way out and pull the guts out. And when the guts are out, now you can easily get your tenderloin. And you've made the elk a lot lighter, and you've kept the head on, so now you can use the elk rack and flip it over if you're by yourself. Now you're going to repeat this process. You're going to go back to the shoulder on the opposite side. You're going to go down to the elbow, cut that elbow off, work that line back up towards your main cut along the spine. And then again, soft tissue, pull that back. You got your shoulder off, set it on the tarp, go to the hind quarter, work that down to probably the knee, but don't cut that leg off yet. Use that leg as leverage, pop that hip bone out, cut the ligaments, and then work along the back of the hip, and you have a huge elk quarter. Set that on there. Then you do your back strap. The guts are now already out of the way. You can get your tenderloin, your rib meat, and then always finish, and I forgot to mention this on the other side, run that cut all the way up to the back of their neck, and then you can peel that neck off, and you can just cut the neck off in really big roast chunks, and you can deal with it later. Keep meat as big chunks as possible. When you cut up small chunks, you're gonna lose more meat after it cures. So the neck's just one huge massive chunk. You can get brisket meat as well. I try to get as much meat as possible off an elk. You as a hunter, as a conservationist, owe it, and it's really good for non-hunting, anti-hunting community to see that we salvage every edible part of that elk. Now, as far as organs and things, I don't eat liver, I don't eat the heart. I'm not against that. I just don't. Our ancestors probably went to those parts first, but now in our day and age, we're looking for the red meat, and that's what we get. That's what I utilize. I hope this helps kind of answer your questions, Kyle. I usually debone all my elk meat, and I would have to do a video on showing you how I do that. But just quickly, the shoulder, take your time. There's a lot of small cuts in there that you can get all that meat off. And then on the hind quarter, if you're deboning, there's a way to do it where you go right along the bone and then cut around, and you can peel off the entire hind quarter in one chunk. Remember, keep your meat in the biggest chunks possible. And I always debone. It seems like I'm never close to a road, and so that's what I do. Also, another thing to think about is rigor mortis. If you didn't get your elk till real late, the stiffer they are, the harder they're to work on. So if you got your elk killed right away, get on it right away, get your picture with it, and then get to work, because rigor mortis can work against you as well. That is kind of how to break down an elk the fastest way possible. I like to get my meat hanging immediately because it's going to take several trips. So find a creek or some shade with cold air that's going underneath your quarters. Get them off the ground. If you're in an area where there's wolves and bears that want to eat your meat, get it up high. I've never ran into that too much, but I always am cognizant of getting good airflow underneath the meat. That's gonna save your bacon, especially when it's 70, 80 degrees in September. This could be an hour conversation. We're trying to keep these short, but this should give you an idea, or at least some tips that, hey, you gotta have the right backpack. You gotta have a sharp knife. Tyvek or Tark. You can run gutless, but gutting does make life better for getting rib meat and tenderloin and moving the elk by yourself. Are you gonna cape it, not cape it? How should I cape it? Don't do all the details around the face, just get it caped out to the base of the antlers and peel back. And there's just so much into breaking down an elk that you just have to learn on your own and watch as many videos as possible with this day and age. All right, last question is from Jameson. He is going to be hunting Utah elk, and he wants to know how to prepare for heavy pack loads. I like that, that's good. Assume the best. His dates are gonna be around October 8th through the 20th. What phase of the rut will he be? And how do you locate elk? Well, we've talked about locating elk before, but let's talk about Utah. I haven't hunted elk in Utah because I'm just kind of waiting for that premium limited entry elk tag, but they do have leftovers and over the counter, and you have to do your research on that. But Utah's got some of the biggest bulls anywhere that you can find, and they manage their elk really well. October 8th, bulls are bugling still. They're probably leaning towards winding down. You missed the peak rut, but there's still bulls with cows for sure. Some bulls might have pulled off, and as your hunt extends into towards the 20th, yeah, there's gonna be some bulls pulling off, go straight into post-rut zone. And when they're in that mode, they're just trying to get away, seclusion. They wanna lick their wounds, they don't wanna travel far, they wanna eat, they wanna sleep, they wanna drink, and they wanna just be left alone. But October 8th, you should be ready to find a bull that's bugling, at least pushing his cows from feeding to bedding, and work that transition time if they're still, you know, in a spot where you can get in on them while they're transitioning and go in silent, run deep, and sneak in there and shoot that bull. Or if you can stay on the elk and put them in their bedding area, get the wind right, maybe have a collar, then you can push in and be a little bit aggressive and see if that bull's got any fight left in him. But you're definitely gonna, I mean, October 8th is still a really good time to kill elk. Just know that as your hunt goes deeper and deeper towards the middle of October to the latter half, that you are gonna have your work cut out for you. And don't be surprised if you see bulls pulling off and you just start seeing cows with spikes. That could definitely happen. As far as where to find the elk, they're still, you know, that time of year, it shouldn't be 2 feet of snow, so they could be up pretty high, and they could be definitely in spots where they're have been pushed from hunting pressure, over a month of hunting pressure, so they're going to be away from roads, they're going to be in hard to find places. Study your maps and have 6 or 7 places that you want to check out, and then take that first day and try to, like, I don't know, just scout a little bit and try to figure things out. Maybe day 2, same thing, maybe start to sort things out a little bit and find your best areas with the sign, or where you're seeing elk, or at least you now know where not to go. And then by the 3rd day, you should be, you know, ready to rock, know where your glassing and your vantage points are, and be watching from afar and ready to make a move. I hope that helps, Jameson. I'll send you guys both some swag. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for watching the Q&A elk shape, and check out these 2 videos I'm going to post here now, and we'll see you on the next one.